The wind was howling at 30 miles an hour, and the target was a mile out, impossible for anyone but a ghost. When the decorated sniper chief missed, he laughed off the janitor's quiet critique. But when she picked up his rifle and didn't just hit the target, but obliterated it, the laughter died. He didn't know he was mocking the only woman the Pentagon ever classified as a lethal weapon. The heat radiating off the Nevada desert floor was enough to distort the air, turning the horizon into a shimmering, watery illusion. At the Iron Sight Tactical Solutions compound, the air conditioning in the observation tower was humming, but down on the firing line, the heat was unforgiving. This was the $1 Million Mile, a private demonstration for military contractors looking to buy the newest long-range ballistic software. At the center of the attention stood Chief Warrant Officer Brock Sterling. He was a man who wore his reputation like a heavy coat, even in the desert sun. Retired from the teams, sporting a perfectly groomed beard and Oakleys that cost more than most people's car payments, Sterling was the face of modern tactical precision. "Gentlemen, observe the windage," Sterling announced, his voice booming for the benefit of the investors and generals standing in the shaded VIP booth behind him. He gestured to the flags whipping violently on the range. "We have a full-value crosswind coming left to right at 25 miles per hour. Variable gusts. The target is a steel plate size of a dinner plate at 2,000 yards. Most men wouldn't even take the shot. I'm going to ring it." He lay prone behind the Macmillan TAC-50, a beast of a rifle chambered in 50 BMG. The recoil alone was enough to detach a retina if you didn't know how to ride it. Off to the side, wearing a faded grey jumpsuit that was 2 sizes too big, Dakota Reynolds pushed a wide broom across the concrete. The dust swirled around her worn-out boots. She kept her head down, a messy bun of dark hair tucked under a nondescript baseball cap. Nobody looked at her. In a place filled with Tier 1 operators and billionaires, the janitor was less than invisible. She was furniture. Dakota paused for a fraction of a second, her eyes flicking toward the flags downrange. She watched the way the sagebrush moved at the 800-yard line compared to the dust devils spinning at the 2,500-yard line. He's reading the wind at the muzzle, she thought, the observation, automatic and unwanted. He's ignoring the thermal draft coming off the canyon wall at the midpoint. He's going to miss high and right. She gripped the broom handle tighter and forced herself to look away. It wasn't her life anymore. "Shooter ready," Sterling barked. "Spotter ready," his partner, a younger guy named Clint, replied, glued to the spotting scope. Crack boom. The shockwave kicked up a cloud of dust around Sterling. The sound rolled through the valley like thunder. Silence followed. "Impact?" Sterling asked, confident. "Miss," Clint muttered, sounding confused. "High right. 2 MOA off. Wind must have gusted." Sterling frowned, adjusting his scope turrets. "Impossible. I held for the gust. It's the ammunition. This batch of match grade is inconsistent." Dakota, sweeping near the ammunition crates, let out a soft, almost imperceptible breath of amusement. It wasn't a laugh, just a release of air. But in the tense silence of the missed shot, it sounded like a gavel dropping. Sterling's head snapped toward her. He pulled his eye away from the scope. "Something funny, sweetheart?" The investors in the booth shifted uncomfortably. Dakota froze. She didn't look up. "No, sir. Just dust." "You laughing at the wind?" Sterling stood up, brushing the dirt off his expensive Cry-Precision pants. He needed a scapegoat. The investors were watching, and missing a shot like that made him look bad. A janitor was an easy target. "You think you know something about ballistics? You think scrubbing toilets qualifies you to judge a shot at 2,000 yards?" "No, sir," Dakota said, her voice raspy from disuse. She kept her eyes on the broom. "I just thought the canyon draft caught it." The silence on the range grew heavy. Sterling let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "The canyon draft? Did you hear that, gentlemen? The cleaning lady is talking about atmospheric variables." He walked over to her, looming over her slight frame. He stood 6'4". She barely cleared 5'5". "This isn't a video game, darling. This is physics. Only SEALs and the best snipers in the world shoot that sharp. You stick to the broom. Leave the math to the men." He turned back to the rifle, expecting her to cower or walk away. "You dialed 4.5 mils, right?" Dakota said. The words were quiet, but they carried. "The draft at the midpoint is pushing vertical and horizontal. If you don't drop 2 clicks of elevation and hold left edge, you'll miss again." Sterling froze. The disrespect was palpable. He turned back slowly, his face reddening. "Get out of here, you're fired. Get off my range." One of the investors, a retired general named Holloway, stepped out of the VIP booth. He had been watching Dakota with narrowed eyes. "Wait a minute, Brock," Holloway said. "Let her talk. If she's wrong, she's wrong. But she called your miss before you took it." "She's a janitor, General," Sterling argued. "It's a liability to even have her on the line." "I want to see," Holloway said, crossing his arms. "Give her the rifle." Sterling's jaw dropped. "You cannot be serious. That's a $10,000 weapon system." "And she's about to embarrass herself," Holloway said, a glint of curiosity in his eye. "Unless you're afraid she won't?" Sterling sneered, his ego cornered. He stepped back from the mat and gestured dramatically to the gun. "Be my guest. Don't dislocate your shoulder, honey, and if you drop it, you're paying for it for the rest of your life." Dakota looked at the rifle. For 3 years she had run from this. She had buried Dakota Reynolds and become just Dee, the woman who emptied the trash. But the arrogance, the sheer, unchecked incompetence of a man blaming the gear, woke up something cold and dormant in her chest. She leaned the broom against the ammo crate. "I don't need the rest of my life," she said, her voice suddenly devoid of the rasp, clear and sharp as cut glass. "I just need 1 round." Dakota walked to the shooting mat. The transformation was subtle, but terrifying to anyone who knew what to look for. The slouch vanished. Her gait became fluid. When she dropped to the prone position behind the rifle, she didn't flop down. She melted into the ground. Sterling crossed his arms, smirking at Clint. "Watch the scope bite. She's gonna get a black eye." Dakota ignored him. She ignored the heat. She ignored the whispers from the VIP booth. The world narrowed down to a single circle of glass. She pulled the stock into her shoulder pocket. Her hands didn't fumble. They moved with the terrifying familiarity of a musician touching their instrument. Her right hand found the bolt, cycling the action to eject Sterling's unspent round and chamber a fresh one. The sound was a crisp, mechanical clack-clack. "Scope is blurry," she noted calmly. "You have the diopter set for a 20/20 vision. You're straining your eye." She reached up and adjusted the focus without looking at the dial. "Hey, don't touch the settings," Sterling barked. "Quiet," Dakota commanded. It wasn't a shout. It was the tone of an officer in charge. Sterling's mouth snapped shut instinctively. She peered through the optic. The target was a blurry speck at 2,000 yards. She breathed in, smelling the gun oil and the desert sage. She looked at the mirage, the heat waves rippling through the air. Wind is 7 miles per hour at the muzzle, she calculated in her head. But at 200 yards, the canyon funnel accelerates it to 18. At the target, it drops to 0. Sterling had dialed for a constant wind. Rookie mistake. "Spotter," Dakota said. Clint, caught off guard, hesitated. Ready?" "Wind call," she tested him. "Right to left, maybe 3 mils," Clint guessed. "Incorrect," Dakota whispered. She reached for the elevation turret. She didn't dial up. She dialed down. "What is she doing?" Sterling hissed. "She's dialing down. She's going to hit the dirt 100 yards short." Dakota settled. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, visualizing the bullet's flight path. The Coriolis effect, the rotation of the Earth, would drift the bullet slightly right during the 3-second flight time. The spin drift would add to it. The canyon updraft would lift it. She opened her eyes. She exhaled. It was the respiratory pause, that empty space between breaths where the heart slows and the body becomes a statue. She didn't snatch the trigger. She applied pressure, straight back, pound by pound. Crack! The rifle roared, kicking back into her shoulder. Dakota didn't blink. She rode the recoil, keeping the scope on the target to spot her own impact. "Flight time," Clint counted involuntarily. 1, 2, 3, ping. The sound was faint, a metallic kiss carried back over a mile of distance, but it was unmistakable. "Impact," Clint whispered, his voice cracking. "Dead center." Bullseye. The observation tower went deathly silent. Sterling snatched the spotting scope from Clint, shoving him aside. He peered through it. There, on the freshly painted white steel, was a black smudge directly in the center of the plate. He pulled back, his face pale. "Luck," he stammered. She jerked the trigger and got lucky with a gust. Dakota didn't move from the rifle. She cycled the bolt. Clack, clack. Another round chambered. "Luck doesn't happen twice," she said. She fired again immediately. Boom. 3 seconds later. Ping. "Same hole," Clint gasped, looking at the feed on his digital monitor. My God. She keyed hold it. 2 bullets through the same hole. Dakota cleared the weapon, left the bolt open, and stood up. She dusted off her knees. The grey jumpsuit was stained with desert clay, but she looked like a giant. She walked past a stunned Sterling, stopping only for a second. "Your barrel is overheating. You're firing too fast for a thin profile barrel. That's why your groups are opening up. It's not the ammo." She picked up her broom. "Who are you?" General Holloway demanded, stepping out of the booth and onto the gravel. "I know every sniper instructor in the tri-state area. I've never seen a janitor shoot a 2,000-yard double tap." Dakota pulled her cap down lower. "Just the help, sir." "Bull," Sterling snapped, his humiliation turning into aggression. He grabbed her arm. "You stole that valor. Where did you learn that? You steal training manuals from the trash? Or is your boyfriend a ranger?" Dakota looked at his hand on her arm. Her eyes went cold. "Let go." "I want to see your ID," Sterling demanded, tightening his grip. "You're a security risk. I bet you're some washout who—" "I said!" Dakota twisted her wrist, locking his elbow and driving her shoulder into his chest, sending the massive man stumbling backward into the dirt. "Let go." It happened so fast Sterling didn't even have time to react. He lay in the dust, gasping for air, his ego shattered twice in 5 minutes. "Security!" Sterling screamed, scrambling up, red-faced. "Arrest her! She assaulted a decorated officer. She's a spy!" 2 armed guards started to move toward her. Dakota sighed. She dropped the broom. She knew this was coming. You couldn't show that kind of skill and just walk away. "Stand down!" General Holloway barked. He was looking at his phone, his face pale. He had just run a quick search on the employee database, cross-referencing her face. "General, she attacked me!" Sterling yelled. "I said stand down!" Holloway roared. He looked from his phone to Dakota. "My clearance is top secret, and even I'm getting a redacted warning on her file when I dig past the employment history." He walked up to Dakota, respect warring with confusion in his eyes. "Who are you really? And don't tell me you're a janitor." Dakota looked at the general. She straightened her posture, the janitor facade vanishing completely. "My name is Dakota Reynolds," she said. "But in the teams, before they officially acknowledged women could operate, They called me Wraith. Sterling's face went white. Wraith? The Wraith of Fallujah? That's a myth. That was a guy. A ghost story they told Bud S. candidates. The story was real, Dakota said softly. The gender was the only part they lied about. The interrogation room was actually a converted tactical briefing center, smelling of stale coffee and gun oil. General Holloway sat at the head of the metal table, his phone resting face down. Dakota sat opposite him, her hands resting loosely on the table, no longer holding a broom, but looking every bit the operator she claimed to be, despite the janitor's jumpsuit. Brock Sterling paced the room like a caged tiger, his face a mask of furious disbelief. He couldn't accept the reality that had just unfolded on the range. To accept it meant destroying the carefully crafted narrative of his own superiority. "It's a lie, General," Sterling spat, pointing a trembling finger at Dakota. "I've been in the community for 15 years. I know every SEAL, every operator, every support tech. There was never a female shooter in DevGru. Never. She's a fraud. She probably washed out of boot camp and memorized some Wikipedia articles about ballistics." Dakota didn't flinch. She watched Sterling with a mixture of pity and boredom. "You were Blue Squadron," she said quietly. 2014. You deployed to Jalalabad. You spent 6 months inside the wire, running the TOC, Tactical Operations Center. You never went outside the wire on a direct action raid, not once. Sterling froze, his face draining of color. "That's classified." "It's common knowledge among the people who actually did the work," Dakota countered, her voice dropping an octave, turning icy. "You built a career on the appearance of being a warrior, Brock. You look the part. You talk the part. But when the rounds start flying, you're an administrator with a nice beard." "Shut your mouth!" Sterling lunged forward, slamming his hands on the table. "Sit down, Sterling," Holloway barked. The general's voice cracked like a whip. He picked up his phone. "I just got off the line with the Pentagon, specifically with the Office of Naval Intelligence." The room went silent. The hum of the server banks in the corner seemed to grow louder. "They wouldn't confirm the name Dakota Reynolds," Holloway said slowly, locking eyes with her. "But when I gave them the service number you whispered to me, the line went dead. 2 minutes later, I got a call back from a restricted number. A very angry admiral asked me why I was detaining Asset 01. Sterling blinked, confused. Asset 01. That's a ghost designation. It doesn't exist. "It exists," Dakota said, looking at the general. "And you need to hang up the phone, General. If they know I'm here, they know he is here." "He?" Holloway asked. "The man chasing me," Dakota said. "Victor Krovos, ex-Spetsnaz turned arms dealer. The man whose brother I put in the ground in Syria 3 years ago. That's why I'm a janitor, General. That's why I'm invisible. Because if I surface, people die." Sterling let out a high-pitched, mocking laugh. "Oh, give me a break. Now she's Jason Bourne. This is ridiculous. She's psychotic, General. She's creating a fantasy to hide the fact that she's a trespassing nobody." Before the general could respond, the compound's proximity alarm screamed. The sound was a harsh, rhythmic klaxon that made everyone jump except Dakota. The door to the briefing room burst open. Clint, the spotter, stood there, pale and shaking. "Sir, we have vehicles breaching the outer perimeter. 3 black Suburbans, no plates. They just rammed the gate." Dakota was moving before the sentence was finished. She stood up, kicking the chair back. "They tracked the phone call," she said grimly. "Krovos has a back door into the Pentagon switchboard. As soon as you ran my service number, it pinged his network." "This is a secure military contractor facility," Sterling shouted, pulling a Glock 19 from his hip holster, his hand shaking visibly. "They can't just drive in here." They just did, Dakota said. She looked at Holloway. General, get to the safe room. Sterling, give me the rifle. Go to hell, Sterling sneered, backing away. I'm in charge of security here. I'll handle this. You stay here and sweep the floor. Sterling turned and ran out of the room, shouting orders into his radio that nobody was answering. Dakota looked at Holloway. He's going to get everyone killed. Then stop him, Holloway said, tossing her a set of keys. Armory is down the hall, third door on the left. Code is 9250. Dakota caught the keys. Get down, General. She sprinted into the hallway. The sound of automatic gunfire erupted from the courtyard. The illusion of safety at Ironside Tactical was shattering, and the man who claimed to be the ultimate warrior was about to find out that war doesn't care about your Instagram following. The courtyard of the Iron Sight facility had become a kill box. Professional mercenaries pinned down the facility's security guards with suppressing fire, chipping away the concrete planters they used for cover. Brock Sterling was crouched behind a Ford F-150, hyperventilating. The man who claimed to be a lethal weapon was frozen in terror, clutching his pistol with white knuckles while his men screamed for orders. "Chief, return fire!" a young guard yelled, clutching a bleeding shoulder. But Sterling couldn't move. Dakota didn't run to the safe room. She sprinted to the roof. Lying prone on the scorching tar paper, she grabbed the Macmillan TAC-50 Sterling had abandoned earlier. She had no spotter, no wind meter, and inconsistent ammo. But she had the skill. Through the scope, she spotted Victor Krovos 800 yards out, directing the assault. Dakota adjusted the scope, dialing out Sterling's bad calculations with muscle memory speed. Range 800. Wind 15 mph. Target moving. Boom! The .50 caliber round roared. The engine block of the lead SUV exploded, steam and oil spraying everywhere, halting the convoy's advance. Sterling, cowering in the dirt, looked up at the roof in confusion. Who? Boom! A second shot obliterated the machine gunner on the rear vehicle. The tide of the battle turned in seconds. Krovos realized the threat wasn't the guards. It was the angel of death on the roof. He raised his rifle, aiming for Dakota's silhouette. It was the ultimate test, a sniper duel. Dakota saw the glint of his optic. She exhaled, finding the respiratory pause, that silent moment between heartbeats. "Good night, Victor," she whispered. She squeezed the trigger. Boom! Krovos fired a split second later, but his aim was thrown wide as pink mist erupted from his shoulder. Dakota's bullet had shattered his scope, driving shrapnel into his eye and dropping him instantly. With their leader down and an invisible sniper dismantling their cover, the remaining mercenaries threw down their weapons and surrendered. When the dust settled, Dakota walked out of the building, wiping carbon from her hands on her grey jumpsuit. General Holloway stood in the courtyard, looking down at a shell-shocked Brock Sterling. "You," Sterling whispered, staring at the janitor with fear. "You took out a Spetsnaz squad with my rifle." "It's a good rifle," Dakota said calmly, not breaking stride. "You just need to learn how to read the wind." Holloway stepped forward, blocking her path. His face held pure awe. "Krovos is in custody. You're free, Dakota. And I am not letting you go back to sweeping floors." He turned to Sterling, his voice hard. "Pack your bags, Brock. You're fired for cowardice under fire and gross incompetence." As Sterling slunk away, stripped of his status and dignity, Holloway handed Dakota a file. "Ironside needs a new chief instructor, one who actually knows the job. Name your price." Dakota took the file, looking at the range where she had been mocked just an hour before. She smiled, a genuine, dangerous smile. "I'll need a raise," she said, "and a new broom. I broke mine on Sterling's chest." Dakota Reynolds went from invisible janitor to the commander of the most elite sniper school in the world, proving that true power isn't about the uniform you wear, but the skill you carry. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video if you think actions speak louder than words. See you in the next story.